Save the Semantics, episode 246. It is February 16th, 2024. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Friday evening. I was able to kind of squeeze some time. This upcoming week, as you may know, I like to record out in nature, where I feel a little more calm and kind of away from the hustle and bustle of I don't know, just other shit, you know. I don't want it to kind of I like to kind of keep it separate from kind of like my workspace and everything. But recording this right now because it's expected to kind of rain within the next week, quite a bit more rain, which I don't know how I feel about that. I'm a little apprehensive about it. So I'm like, might as well just take advantage of today, where it could potentially be like one last day where we, don't have any rain. So I also kind of want to, be out in nature too. So might as well take advantage of that and kill two birds with one stone. That type of deal. So this week has been interesting. I'm also kind of like in a weird I'm in like a weird mood. I'm like weirdly happy because I don't know. I'm sort of I got some like relatively good news, and I'm like sort of conflicted about it. I don't really want to get into that because it's a bit personal, but so it's like good, and then and I'm just like, I'm also tired because of work, so I'm like kind of ranging in emotions right now. I'm sort of like, I'm just kind of like weird, tired, and delirious a little bit. But that's kind of where my headspace is right now. So overall, I'm okay. This morning I woke up and I just was, I felt probably the most vegetable that I felt in a very long time, if that makes any sense. I just was not in any state of mind where I wanted to do like anything at all. I just wanted to lie down. So that was kind of where my head was at. But right now I feel okay. I am still tired, for sure, but not as bad as I was this morning. So that's a plus, I guess. Let's start with basketball. That's usually where I like to start. Been pretty checked out of games, kind of leading up to the All-Star break. It is officially like the All-Star weekend now. Starting today, they're doing the Celebrity All-Star game, I believe, and the Rising All-Star games. I don't know if I'm going to check those out. Most likely not. I may check out tomorrow night's activities. Maybe just kind of tune in here and there for like the 3-point contest, and that's kind of really it. I don't know what they're going to do for the slam dunk. Like last year's slam dunk was good because of Mac McClung. He is back, so that could be worth checking out. And then I wasn't 100% of who else. I think Jaylen Brown is in it, right? That's like a pretty big one. That's like the first time in a minute since we've had like an all-star caliber player in the in the dunk contest. So that could bring some attention, you know what I mean? We'll see how the actual event goes, but I think if they're able to actually supplement the contest with actual good dunkers like they did last year, they could keep it exciting. Like obviously they're not, someone like McClung isn't like he's been a constant G League player for the majority of his career, but that doesn't mean that he can't be still included in conversation. I think that it really just comes down to the performance, you know what I mean? As long as there's some exciting dunks that happen, I don't see why that can't be, why that shouldn't be an issue, right? And then on top of that, if they can get some bigger names in the dunk contest, like a Jalen Brown. I don't really consider him to be like a dunker. Like I have seen him get some good in-game dunks, but I don't know if he's necessarily like someone that can pull it off. But we'll see, man. We'll see if he can get some good ones. But so it'll be interesting. I might tune in just to kind of check it here and there, and see how that goes. All-Star game, like I said, I haven't really watched. I mean, when has the game been entertaining? For a long time. I think it's been a minute since it's been like actually competitive, you know what I mean? So I just kind of am like, is the spectacle of it, seeing all these players get together, worth it? I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see. What else did I want to touch upon? Going into, I had like a conversation or discussion piece that I wanted to bring up regarding kind of the longevity of the season, or just the length of the season. I feel that 82 games is quite a bit. It's at this kind of point, honestly, where these last couple of months, where I am very much kind of like checked out, you know what I mean? Like, it's very hard to stay focused on games, because like this is just like a common trend every season, really. And I've talked about this before, but it's like I'm fully invested at the very beginning, like the first 2 weeks of the season. I'm like locked in. I'm watching almost every game. At least I'm like checking in on like results of every game. But then as like the season progresses, kind of half past the halfway point, especially right now, it's like I feel like I've seen a lot already, and there's you know there's also there's a lot of fatigue that comes with the games. Players are sitting out. There are still exciting games that happen for sure, but it's just not. I'm just personally not as invested. I'm kind of ready for the next progression, right? Into the playoffs, right? That's when it really picks up, and when it gets to sort of like that play-in week, the first round of the playoffs, that's when shit really gets going, you know what I mean? And like once the standings really truly matter, when it is integral to lock in a playoff position, I think that's when it is the most one of the more exciting periods of the regular season, right? And I think that the length of the season can kind of pose a bit of an issue with, obviously casual viewers for sure. I kind of include myself in the casual viewer list because I'm not engaged with every single game. I'm not watching every single Warriors game, even right now, just because I don't have the time for that. So, is there a way to maybe optimize and make it so that the viewing experience of a regular season is more enjoyable for everyone involved, right? There is, of course, the issue of players not committing to certain games, even if they are considered healthy enough to play, right? Like injury is, of course, a very big factor when it comes to basketball and this league. So that can heavily affect how just the turnout of the team, the turnout for the fans. Like if a certain player like is not playing, the star player of a team is not playing, I feel you're less inclined, you are less incentivized to go watch that game, like because you're sure, you're there to support your team, but you also want to see Steph Curry play, right? So I think that and I think it also kind of adding on to the injury side of things, like because of how long the seasons are, it is more likely that players get injured because more pressure is put on their bodies and that sort of thing, right? I think the biggest factor to why the league, or rather the season hasn't been shortened, is because just money in general, and then just sort of the, the just the kind of the grandfathering of this 82 game season, and just how it's sort of been a staple at this point. But I don't see a reason why it can't change, right? They've introduced the play-in, which has been a pretty big success. They introduced the in-season tournament, which seemed to have been a pretty good success as well. Obviously, you could argue it's like, okay, but how is the, you could argue the, what is it, the actual, the tangibles of like whether it's, actually worth something, that tournament award or whatever, is that like worth was it worth it? Like, I mean, they could just kind of build on that for sure, but so far it seems to like draw in more players or more fans to watch the games and that sort of thing. I'm wondering if it is worth it to shorten the season kind of little by little, just kind of like cut off parts of it so then they can hone in on more games. And again, like I said, optimize. Like I remember back in like the lockout season or whatever, like despite, I felt like I was like, ooh, less games. I don't know if I like that. And it turned out to not really be that much of a problem, Like it was just kind of like, oh, this is just sort of a shortened season, and we'll just work with that. Same thing with like the post-COVID year, 2021. Like, we were technically still in COVID, but like the season was shortened because it started up later, right? It started up during like December, I believe, near Christmas. And then it kind of went forward from there. And it was a shortened season. It was like 60 something games, but that wasn't a problem at all. I just don't see why they can't do something similar like that. Like, because I mean, and I know why. It's because of the money involved. I totally understand that. But can we maybe try to, I don't know, is there like an agreement that like the players union and the NBA can come to where like they can like find some kind of level ground where, it's like, hey, listen, maybe we can shorten this to like 70 games and just kind of test the waters to see how that goes. Provide more games or more days in between games to provide rest for players so that they can actually play games and there's less of a chance for them to get injured. Like, can we just spread out the games a little bit more? Like, if we did something like a 70 game or even like a 60 game season, can there maybe just be like maybe like just like 2 games a week for each team? Like, can we do something like that? I feel like that's pretty viable, you know what I mean? I think the issue on the fan side of things is that tickets might get more expensive because there's less supply, quote unquote supply of games. So that could prove to be maybe a bit of a problem, but games are already expensive anyway, you know what I mean? So I think that there's more there's going to be more of a demand for the games because there's less of them. So obviously this demand goes up, price goes up, if supply goes down, demand, fucking economics, right? So that could be an issue on the consumer side of things, but it's like if the NBA can somehow leverage that and create a opportunity for this to kind of work out, it might be better. It might work out, man. 82 games is a lot of games, man. I'm not paying attention to all of them. I'm really not. Especially not right now. Obviously due to just, my own situation with, it's time, my time management. I don't have time to watch games. So that makes a little bit more sense. But I feel there is a way to make it work so that everyone can kind of have a piece of the pie. You know what I mean? So that's something. It's like if we've introduced all of these other additional things, why not also introduce shortening, quote unquote, shortening the season, or just cutting down the number of games, right? Like we could still start in October again, and then we could just limit the number of games per week. 2 games a week for each team instead of, and just completely get rid of back to backs. Just get rid of them. You know what I mean? Like I think back to backs are killer for just in general for all teams. Like especially if you're traveling from city to city. If you have a home back to back, it's not as big of an issue. But if you're going like if like even if you're just like traveling along like the East Coast or whatever, it's still distance to travel, get on the plane. Like I can't even imagine, like obviously players get used to the jet lag and just the effects of travel. Like I totally I'm sure that they just completely adjusted to that. But still, man, there's fatigue. There's not enough time in between games for resting, whatever. Like there's just back to backs are killer. I just think they should get rid of them, and I think what it comes down to is just just clearing out and reducing the number of games in the regular season. Hopefully that's my spiel. Reduce the number of regular season games so that players can actually play. The on court product is better. And there's going to be more excitement for individual games because one, there's less of them, right? I think that this is where the NFL continues to be the I guess the whatever you want to call it, um the sort of the example of success in sports and being one of the number one draw of American audiences is because like it's very specifically like majority of games, obviously there's like Monday Night Football and shit like that, but majority of the games are on Sunday. It's like an event, right? It's very clearly an event. You could tie, it's on the weekend. Tickets are there's a limit. There's a very clear time and day for those games. It's like, oh yeah, it's like football. It's football day, and so and there, it's an event every week. There's like some kind of an event. So I think that's a very clear. I don't know. It's pretty obvious, right? Like it's a very obvious kind of draw. With the NBA, it's a little more difficult because there's games every single day. So, like most like casual fans are not paying attention every single day. So, is there like a way to like be like, hey, Mondays or Wednesdays and Fridays, like they're already doing kind of nationally televised games. Like, why don't they just like really hone in on those if they can? I don't know. Just spitballing here. So that's kind of my spiel on the length of NBA seasons. Let's get into some gaming news, or the lack of gaming news. So there was no Nintendo Direct this week. Despite a lot of us anticipating it, there was none. There was no news. They had some kind of a rollout on Twitter where they were announcing games that were going to be released. A big one for me was East 10. Was confirmed to be coming to Switch later this year, which is really exciting. I think 10, the quality of that game looks a lot better than 9. I think that I do have 9 on kind of my list of games that I may want to play, but I've heard that the Switch version of the game is unfortunately incredibly buggy and low performance, so that has sort of turned me off from purchasing that game. I also have a huge backlist of games, like I've mentioned, so that's not really, I can get away with not, playing this specific game. So, but East 10 looks great. It looks really fun. It looks colorful, similar to East 8, which is one of my favorite games. So, yeah, if it comes out, and if there is I'm going to do probably like a quick check to see how well it performs on Switch, but it seems that it might Like if like the performance is anything, if it's even slightly better than Ys 8 on the Switch, I would be happy about it. So that was one announcement that they made. They also made kind of like small other announcements for like Princess Peach, other stuff like that, which I'm not super interested in. But they kind of had like a small little rollout on Twitter yesterday, in lieu of a direct, potentially, right? I think that's what some people were arguing. There has been some rumors like circulating regarding that the direct has been pushed forward, or rather pushed back until next week. So the rumor mill keeps churning. I'm gonna probably pay attention to see or kind of like stay on top and see if a direct does come out. It is really funny. So on top of like the direct news, obviously there's a lot of Switch 2 news. The initial rumor that was kind of heavily hinted was saying that the Switch 2 was going to be announced March of this year. Recently, I've seen that they might push it back until Q1 of 2025, which is kind of a bummer, you know what I mean? If there is any if that kind of news source or like rumor is, reliable at all, that does kind of suck, because there is kind of this like really heavy anticipation that a new system is going to be announced this year, and a lot of speculation starting all the way from last year in regards to just like Switch 2 was being shown at like GDC and stuff like that. So if it is true that the Switch 2 gets pushed back all the way till next year, it kind of sucks. It sort of takes a lot of the excitement out of a new system, of new games, right? So that's kind of unfortunate. I've said before that I'm probably not going to buy the new console anytime soon. Definitely not at launch. I've never been someone who bought consoles at launch. So it didn't really affect me too much. Or it wouldn't really affect me too much if they did end up pushing the release date back. But it just kind of sucks because, like, I feel for a lot of other people who are really anticipating this to come out this year. So it kind of I feel on their behalf, and I also just like hearing news too. It's exciting to hear about these like new releases, even though these are games that I probably won't get to anytime soon. But it's just kind of exciting to be kind of a part of that. So it is sort of unfortunate that we're kind of hearing speculation that this news is getting kind of pushed back. Because then it's also the fact that it kind of leaves bare what else we're gonna get for the rest of the year for just the Switch in general. We haven't had a lot of announcements in regards to any new games. A lot of the games that have been announced are like remasters, kind of just kind of like whatever you want to call it, what is the word? Oh my god, I'm like blanking on it. Remasters and what's the other term? It's remasters and remakes of games, of older games, right? That have been sort of announced and stuff, but outside of that, it's like I don't know if that's enough to hold, the rest of the year together, right? There is like, you could argue that there are some announcements that could help boost sort of, the Switch's continuation for this year at least, but if there's no like first party stuff from Nintendo directly, it's really hard, like new first party stuff to come out. I think it's really difficult for I don't know how much that's gonna hold the attention of, you know, actually, you know, very like strong, kind of rabid Nintendo fans, right? It's gonna be a long year, man. I think if the news and the rumors hold to be true, we're in it for the long haul. You know what I mean? We got another year to hold on to for any announcements for a new console. So yeah, that kind of sucks. It is really funny. I do want to kind of mention. I think seeing some of the reactions from some of fans are very funny. Just like being like, you know, it's Jover and stuff like that. I think it's like I feel for them, but it's also really funny to me. There was like one comment that made me laugh really hard, but it was just like talking about how it was just like saying something along the lines of man, they're not releasing anything. I just gotta hold out with like Mario versus Donkey Kong versus like Koopa Links for like HD remaster for this entire year. It's gonna be a rough one, man. It was like something along those lines, and that kind of made me laugh a bit. But yeah, I'm hoping, you know, there's still some hope that that there's gonna be, you know, a new system, but I'm gonna just kind of, you know, I'm gonna set my expectations to a minimum at this point, because they've been so quiet. Like on the Nintendo front of things, they haven't said anything. They've said jack about new system, new games too. Like they've been real silent about that. So I'm just kind of holding back on any news regarding the any, you know, just any systems and stuff. I do hope that there is some kind of a direct next year or next week, excuse me. I think that could be I'm still optimistic that there's going to be a direct next week, as some people have said. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed on that, because I think it would be nice to see some news come out on that front. Um, Other stuff that I wanted to kind of catch up on. I'm most likely just going to keep it to this recording for this week, just because I don't. I think it's going to be a little difficult to squeeze in another time this weekend to do another recording. So it's probably going to be a bit of a shorter one. I started up Baten Kaitos this week. I've been kind of playing it after work. I'm like I've made like the I want to give some initial impressions. I'm like struggling to like figure out how to talk about the game. I've started the first spot in Kaitos. I've enjoyed it so far. I think it's really I like. I'm interested in seeing where the story goes. I'm seeing a lot of parallels with this game in terms of just like the world and the you know, the structure of the world, and Xenoblade 2, just like the cloud sea, the titans, like, you know, people traveling around on these like larger than like landmass animals, right? I'm seeing a kind of a common thread there. I like the environments. I really like the individual areas are sort of, you know, like this feels very much like an old school JRPG, kind of in line with you know, like games from like the PS1 era with Final Fantasy and that sort of thing. 3D, you know, 3D models for the characters, and then maybe sort of like a combination of 2D, 3D for like the backgrounds. I think it's nice. It's really pretty. Reminds me a little bit of like Final Fantasy 9, and from my kind of very brief, you know, very brief sort of view of like Chrono Cross, the very like colorful and pretty sort of like oceanic environments, which I like. I dig it. The characters are, you know, interesting. I haven't really delved too much. I just started, so I really can't get a gauge on, you know, on the characters. The main character is he's unlikable, but it's not to the same extent as like someone like Luke from Tales of the Abyss, where you kind of hate his character for like the first like 30 hours of the game. Um, you dislike Collis a little bit because he's very selfish and kind of self-centered, but he's not unbearing. Like he's not constantly complaining about stuff, but it's more like he has like a very questionable moral compass and questionable ethics, which I think makes for an interesting main character. Like he's not without, he's not some kind of flawless person. Like he clearly has some kind of past, and you have an idea of where his motivation comes from, but you don't really you don't get we haven't gotten like the full extent of his character, but you can kind of see where he's coming from and why he's a bit of a dick. So it'll be interesting seeing how his character um you know develops throughout the game. I like the music. The music is sort of like an interesting choice of like you kind of have some of the more like orchestral pieces. um the battle themes remind me a bit of like Ys, where you kind of have like the rock elements to it combined, with sort of the more epic kind of orchestral elements, I guess if you want to call it that. I think that's pretty fun. And there's one thing, it's kind of funny. So there are these like NPC shopkeepers in each area, each village, town, and the character models for them, they don't blink. So it's kind of creepy. They kind of look like dolls, but not in like a good way. So every time, like the very first time I walked into kind of one of the stores and came across the NPC, I was sort of like, I was like kind of like thrown away because they weren't blinking. I was like, this is pretty creepy. I don't know. Like I don't know why they didn't like animate the eyes at all. I thought that was like really weird. It was a weird decision. Like, is it really that hard to make them like blink a little bit? It still would have been a bit unnerving and a bit, you know, a little uncanny. But I feel like it would have given them a bit more movement and to the character other than just giving them blank stares. So that was like one point. I like the I like the pace of this game. It's going really smoothly. Um, there hasn't really been any like lull points at all. Like it's just kind of moving at a really steady pace. We kind of like we haven't really like, you can choose to stay in an area, but the story is moving at a really like brisk pace, which I kind of like. Um, and because it just sort of like, and I haven't really had needed to like grind at all, which I think is good. So far on that front, I don't know if there was like a QL update with this remastered version, but if there has been, it's like a nice, it's kind of a nice addition. Really just like steady, and I don't feel like there's been any hold ups with any with kind of the story progression. The combat is interesting. I didn't really know. I mean, I knew what to expect with kind of the card aspect of it. Um, it is not at all like any of like the other rogue like card games that I've played, like Slay the Spire or Monster Train, anything like that. Um, it is more the emphasis is more on you being able to kind of string together combos with your cards. Say you have, and each card is like numbered as well. So say you have like a hand of like three, one of, if your character has a focus on like elemental attacks, say you have, I don't know, three fire cards and then two like miscellaneous cards, like a healing item or a defense item. It is more optimal to just kind of use up those three attack cards to string together as much damage as possible. I also like the fact that if you use, say, a fire attack card and a water attack card, those kind of cancel each other out, and so the damage you inflict on an enemy is a lot less than if you had just used the fire card. So that's kind of another aspect to the combat as well. I don't know if it's going to get deeper than that. I think that I think there's going to be more characters that come into your party, and so each character might have more different ways of optimizing them and using them in combat. But the kind of the main draw, pun intended, the main draw of the card battle system, I don't know if it's going to become any deeper than that. Like it feels kind of, it could just kind of remain sort of surface level. I don't know. I do enjoy it for sure, but it's definitely not kind of the main thing that is really drawing my attention with this game. It's more so the other elements of the story and the music and kind of the adventure aspects of it. But I do. I still enjoy the combat system. It's just not the deepest thing that I've seen. But who knows, man? It might continue to develop, and there might be more strategy involved as I progress in the game. And there's also the second game as well, and so maybe they make improvements on this battle system and add upon it. So there's also that potential as well. So those are kind of my first impressions of Baten Kaitos so far, as I'm kind of maybe 6 hours into the game. Pretty earlier on, I think. I don't actually know how long this game takes to beat. I'm a little hesitant to look that up. I sort of, maybe I'll check it out later, but I don't want to be, I don't want to set expectation. Well, I don't know. I've talked about how I look up how long games are all the time, so maybe I might just do that. But I also don't want that to be at the back of my head, and I kind of just want to enjoy the game as I kind of go along with it, and not think about how much longer I have in this game, so then I move on to the next game. I don't want to think too much about that. Anyways, that's kind of a wrap up for this week. Sadly, no Nintendo Direct, like I mentioned. Hopefully there was one next week, so that's something that I can talk about and really delve into. Maybe I'll do an all-star break impressions thing. I don't know. Maybe I'll do so. I don't know. I'll talk about it if I watch it at all, if anything interesting comes up. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Thank you for listening. This has been Save the Spantics, signing off.